Morning, everyone, and thank you for your attendance at this Dingwall and Seaforth Area Committee. I'll ask Jane Design to call the roll, please. It shouldn't take long.
Councillor McLean. Councillor Hutcherson. Councillor Pensy.
Present.
And we have an apology for Councillor Kennedy.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Are there any declarations of interest, members? Agenda item 3, the committee is asked to note the recess powers granted by the council in its June meeting did not require to be exercised in relation to the business of the Dingwall and Seaforth Committee. Agenda item 4, moving on to you, Richard, is the area performance summary, and I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Okay, so hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read the report that was submitted. It covers the period 1st of April 2022 to 31st of March 2023. I don't intend to go through every line of the report, but just to kind of highlight the key points. The first point I'd like to make is you will notice that it's a different name on the report this time. Chief Inspector Scott MacDonald has retired and has been replaced by Acting Chief Inspector Stuart Fitzpatrick, who is the new area commander for North Highland. So the reports come from him, but I'm delivering it today. I would say is the usual sort of caveat that in terms of the interpretation of statistics and the data, in terms of the 5 and 3 year averages, we have to bear in mind that the COVID period has affected that. So, you know, we're still seeing statistics slightly skewed due to that. So in terms of report, I'll go over that. So our local policing priorities continue to be road safety and road crime, antisocial behaviour, violence and disorder, acquisitive crime, protecting vulnerable people, serious and organised crime, terrorism and public order. Page 4 of the report has the Dingwall and Seaforth area at a glance, and I'll quickly run over that before going into each priority. So in terms of road safety and road crime, overall, road crime has increased against the 5 year average and the last year to date. Mobile telephone offences have increased again against 5 year and last year to date, and fail to insure against third party risk has increased against both measures as well. What I would say is that that is not unexpected as the roads have become busier over the last couple of years, as people have become got the freedom more after sort of being released from the COVID restrictions. We would have anticipated a rise in road traffic offences. Again, antisocial behaviour, there is an increase in overall antisocial behaviour against the 5 year and last year to date, and offences of assault have also increased against the 5 year and the last year to date. It is pleasing to see that serious assaults have decreased against both measures as well. In terms of acquisitive crime, overall acquisitive crime has dropped against the 5 year and last year to date. Housebreaking has decreased against the 5 year average, but has increased slightly against the last year to date with 2 more crimes. Fraud offences have increased against the 5 year, but decreased against the last year to date. I'll go on to provide more information in terms of fraud when we go into more detail. In terms of protecting vulnerable people, overall sexual crime has decreased against both measures. Domestic offences have increased against the 5 year, but decreased against the last year to date. In terms of hate crime, there has been an increase against the 5 year average and a decrease on last year. In terms of the hate crime, to give some context in relation to that, the vast majority of that hate crime relates to abuse shouted at police officers from without going into too much details, but it's a small number of people who we are currently dealing with who regularly shout abuse at the police that would be classed as a hate crime. So it's not, the vast majority is not in relation to members of the public. In relation to serious and organised crime, there has been a decrease in drug supply offences. In the last one there's counter-terrorism and domestic extremism. We don't provide figures in relation to that, but again, there is information there from our counter-terrorism liaison officer. Going into more detail for each of the priorities, in terms of road safety and road crime, it's pleasing to see there has been no fatal road accidents within the reporting period. There has been a slight decrease in drink and drug driving offences, and there has been an increase in speeding offences. As a command area, we still target road traffic offences under Operation Cedar, which is challenge, educate, detect and reduce. That is both with our road policing colleagues and local officers. I think you'll see from the statistics the proactive road policing work is increasing and we are getting detections. As it is pleasing to see there's been no fatal road accidents. Moving on to antisocial behaviour, disorder and violence. Again, statistics are there. There's been no murders, thankfully, in the area in the last year. In terms of assault, there's an increase. As I've said, there's been a decrease in serious assaults. Whilst there's been a decrease in drug supply offences, there has been a slight increase in drugs possession offences. And again, that comes down to the proactive approach from the local police officers to detect that offences. I previously mentioned that we have a harm prevention officer based in Inverness, which is funded through NHS Highland and the Highlands and the Alcohol and Drug Partnership. That role continues, and that officer does support the work within North Highland area, and particularly the Dingwall and Seaforth area. In terms of acquisitive crime, I've given some statistics in relation to that already, around house break-ins having decreased on the 5-year but increased in the last year to date. I did mention frauds, how they had increased on the 5-year average, but there's been a slight decrease on last year. I would say with frauds, the vast majority of frauds are committed out with the United Kingdom, which is why the detection rate is low. Very few frauds are committed from within the UK. They're telephone, internet type scams, and we continue our preventative approach to that with a lot of preventive material going out on our social media channels in the main or through public events. We continue to use the banking protocol, which is very successful in N Division. We've got good support from financial institutes, and that is aimed at people who are lifetime being the victim of financial crime, generally having been forced to attend a bank and transfer or take out money via the banks in our area are very proactive at identifying when it's a scam and informing the police. There's also a section there on Rural Watch, which I would encourage you to sign up for. It gives good information on crimes within the area. Moving on to protecting vulnerable people. As with against each of the crimes listed there, sexual crime, domestic crime, hate crime, there has been a decrease on both the 5-year and the year to date, which is pleasing to see. In terms of missing people, there has been a reduction in cared for adults and looked after children reports in the last year to date. I'd say in our area there's been a significant reduction in the number of looked after children being reported missing from the various care homes we have, and we continue to have a liaison officer working with each of the homes to try and reduce these incidents. So I've already given the context on the hate crime section. In relation to serious and organised crime, as I said, there has been a reduction in drug supply offences. There has still been significant levels of proactivity, and there's a number of cases coming to court, which for obvious reasons I can't go into in any detail. There's there's a section in the report on county lines activity. And I think it's important to recognise that as an area we continue to be vulnerable to county lines activity. We have our divisional serious and organised crime team based in Inverness, which covers the whole division, although they're based there, and they do carry out work into North Highland area and within the Dingwall and Seaforth area. I'm not going to cover the counter-terrorism section, that's there to read, there's no statistics. There's further statistics in more detail at the back of the report. I don't intend to go into them unless anybody particularly wishes me to. The last part I'd like to cover is obviously the documented challenges that are facing Police Scotland in the coming year. You will be aware that in terms of budget, there is budget constraints on Police Scotland. We have had to lose a number of posts in N Division. Overall, in the North Highland area, we have actually gained in posts rather than having lost. Obviously, with the financial constraints, the ability to use overtime to fill gaps is reduced this year. We are trying to find other ways around that with a look at our deployment model to ensure the resourcing levels are maintained. But you know, it's not without its challenges. The current financial climate that we are in, and they're well documented and have been well documented by our now former chief constable. So it's there in the public domain for people to see. Chair, that's all I'd like to say, but I'm more than happy to take any questions from members.
Thanks, Richard. Just on your last point there, I've arranged with Rob Shepherd to give a briefing for all members on the current financial situation in relation to Highlands. And that notice will go out to members today. It's for the 23rd of August, which I think is a week on Wednesday. So he's going to, and we've invited questions from all members. We've asked for questions, not to get them off the hook, but I'm conscious that a number of these questions will need to be answered by the National Police Force rather than by Highland or North Constabulary. So we're arranging for pre-delivered questions, and he'll do that next Wednesday. So I hope members will be happy with that. Just, I wonder, we, as you know, had a meeting with you and residents from a part of the town about certain difficulties that were going on in that estate. You'll recall that we met with Derek Manson and the housing people. From your perspective, how have things been going down there? Is it quieting down?
Yes. So we had enhanced patrols for quite some time. We did sort of ease off on that, but there was concerns from Councillor Kennedy. He identified that still concerns. So we are trying to maintain increased patrols in that area. In terms of call demand, there is reduced. We're certainly not getting the same complaints to the police that we were. I'm not sure whether that's replicated with yourselves.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think the residents that I've been in contact with seem to are very appreciative of the efforts that you made down there. So thanks for that. Members, any questions? Councillor Patterson.
Mark? Yeah. Yes. Thank you for that. That was very full and good bits, but bad bits. I know that you're working hard, and I know your budgets are not as good as what they ought to be. And of course, it's the people on the street and out and about that suffer. And, you know, after watching the Highland Police programme, you can understand the difficulties they have away out in the sticks to get any officers. And I was going to ask about the Burns Crescent, but our chair has already asked you. So I don't know if you can answer this or not, but there's been quite a bit of police presence up in McCrae Crescent, and I just wondered if it's something that we should have been notified about, because it's not happened just once, and there's quite a number of police there. There's just one or two things in the report that you give us, which, as I said, was very full. I'm really concerned about what's going to happen coming into autumn and winter, like you state here with the cost of living rise. And I just wondered if you could tell us a bit more on your team are continuing to work with partners, just to protect the vulnerable people within the communities. Does that mean there'll be more officers on the beat? But having you saying that you are low on staff, I doubt it'll be that, which is the most important bit. Especially older people like to see a policeman now and then, And the other one was about further down about antisocial behaviour. You said there's only been a slight increase. Are you able to tell us what areas? Because sometimes we hear about antisocial behaviour, but and people have said we've phoned the police, but none of them arrived, and then we either can't get through or we don't get a response. And I would actually like, when you come to the bit about missing people, could you tell us a little bit more? I often get phone calls from people saying, my son hasn't arrived back home. And I can't remember how long it is that you have to wait before you notify the police that a person's missing. And I think it's different from different ages or something, but people do worry. And of course, as it says here, that sometimes the person turns up, so you've already been searching. So I wondered, was there a cut-off amount? And you probably won't be able to answer this one, but I'm going to ask it nevertheless. Is Dingwall Station closing? Because if I get another person saying to me, they go to the station, they can't get in, and it's lying there empty. Now, I know it's not lying there empty, but the public don't realise that. And they keep saying, no, but it's closing anyway, so they're not bothering. And I think it's time that we came out and were honest with our constituents. And it doesn't help when we say, well, we don't know, we don't get told anything. Well, don't mean anything, but that's a turn of phrase. So I think that's enough for you to answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll try and take them off one at a time. So in terms of you mentioned the team working with the vulnerable people in relation to the sort of autumn winter period. I think it's important to know that when I talk about the team working in relation to vulnerable people, I don't just refer to local police officers. In terms of protecting vulnerable people, we have what's called the Concern Hub, which is based at the headquarters in Old Perth Road. So when a local officer attends an incident and they have a concern for somebody on the vulnerability, we have a whole team who look at that and link in with relevant partner agencies to ensure that the correct support is provided to that person. So when I talk about the team, it's a lot wider than just local officers, and the Concern Hub to do that work on our behalf to ensure that partner agencies are updated and informed of people requiring assistance. In terms of antisocial behaviour, unfortunately, statistics do not go down to street area level. I would have to go back and look at what particular areas we have antisocial behaviour, but I would say in general, Dingwall and Seaforth, we don't have one particular area standing out as a problem compared to others. And I say the levels of antisocial behaviour, I would say, are relatively low in the area and decreasing. In terms of missing people, just to clarify, there is no time required for somebody to be missing before you report to the police. If you believe somebody is a missing person, that should be reported to us regardless of how long, and we'll make an assessment on what is required and what risk is involved in that missing person. So we regularly get asked this, how long do they have to wait to report? There is no time you have to wait. If you think somebody's missing, it should be reported to us as soon as possible. And in terms of Dingwall Police Station, there is front counter staff based at Dingwall. It does not cover 24/7. It is mainly the days and finishes about 6 at night. We have 3 staff members. We don't cover 24/7. And in terms of our estate, as I've previously told the councillors, there is an ongoing project to review the current estate across our area. That does not mean that buildings will be closing or that they won't be replaced. There is an ongoing review of the estate, what we need and where we need it. So that work is ongoing at the moment. I think that's all the questions you asked, unless I've missed any, councillor.
Okay, thank you for that. Richard, at least probably 6 months ago, as local members, we've asked about maybe having regular updates, and you offered to not only meet with ourselves, but also with community council leads. And I understand now Chief Inspector Stuart Fitzpatrick's the area commander. Is that something that is being progressed? Because our communities are where you get your intelligence from, but it's also very useful for them to know from the horse's mouth, as it were, exactly what's going on, because they are being asked by their communities, just as Councillor Patterson has indicated already, what's happening. And then it's you as the police force that are saying, well, this is what's really going on. With the other things in the agenda, I know that this is a kind of more new format, and there are comments made in it for Dingwall and Seaforth, but much of it still is quite, probably, as you mentioned it in your reply to Councillor Patterson, it's more strategic, it's more based in Inverness. So I wondered, on the antisocial behaviour and disorder, we are, as local members, are getting a lot of queries in different parts of the ward about antisocial behaviour. And as you know, we've had a conversation previously, and some people are, maybe as Councillor Patterson says, don't get through to the police. But there is the opportunity for people, if they are worried about any kind of post-action, that they can go to Crime Stoppers. So do you highlight that as an option for people to go to rather than the police when there's maybe a lot of antisocial behaviour happening in an area? And I know that we've had a few meetings, and you work closely with housing as well, Highland Council housing staff, in order to address some of those issues. So can you maybe expand a wee bit on what Crime Stoppers do different from police, because they're a charity? On the Operation Cedar, where you talk about proactively working with multi-agencies regarding improving drivers' behaviour. Can I ask what's happened with driving ambitions when you worked with schools? Is that still ongoing, or that stopped after COVID? Or if you could give us maybe an update on that. And the harm prevention officer, the cuckooing, are you seeing a big increase in that as more vulnerable people are coming out of hospital? Is that an increase in our area or overall on the cuckooing? Because I know some people are worried that when their relatives come home from hospital after being in a long time, that maybe they'll get back into some of their maybe previous friends that they were with, that they might be vulnerable. Where does that get raised? Should I be directing them to the harm prevention officer, or if someone comes to me with that concern, which one has just the other day? Rural Watch, you're right, we've raised that before. We're in an area where we've got lots of farms as well, and there's a number of farmers that have had equipment stolen. And on the Highland Champs, you talk about providing a safe space for activities based in the Clachnahari and Inverness, but Dingwall Academy also have a lot of work that they're doing with Champs, and they've got a couple of their corridors have got lovely murals showing that. So they do a lot of work. So how closely are you working with the schools as well, and not just social work in Clachnahary? I suppose the main concern that we all have and our communities have is there's not enough police officers, they feel, out and about, and that sometimes crimes, that you have to prioritise the crimes when they come in to you, when you come into the station, and some feel that it's maybe, you know, a few months before they're contacted. That situation isn't going to change, is it? If you're saying that you're going to lose, or staffing is going to change, but perhaps that will come out of the briefing that we're having in a couple of weeks, because you mentioned that there was more staff, but you didn't mention what positions that they have within the organisation. Could you clarify that? Will it be police officers on the ground, or will it be specific roles that these new officers or staff will have? Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to go through each question one. Hopefully, we can note them all down. So, in terms of community council contact, which I think was your first question, I'm currently leading on a project to review the reports that go to community councils. That should, I hope to have that concluded next month, and that will standardise it across the whole of the N division area. So community councils are getting a consistent product from, it will be localised, but it will be a consistent type of product to each community council. So that should be implemented the next couple of months. I know one of the points is always about attendance at community councils. To be honest, we find that really difficult to attend them all, and the likelihood is our contact will be in the main via reports and an identified liaison officer for contact back and forth between the community council and Police Scotland, rather than actually physically attending the meetings. In terms of Crime Stoppers charity, asked what they do. They are an independent charity for people to provide information on crimes. It's an anonymous charity. We do advertise their number in a lot of our media releases, but they are independent from the police. And it's not just the police service they provide information to, you know, it could be any other law enforcement agencies. So they are completely separate from us. You mentioned our work with housing. Yes, we continue to work with housing. We have a good relationship with our housing colleagues in terms of antisocial behaviour to identify problematic addresses and address that, whether that be through enforcement action or preventative action. In terms of Operation Cedar, you specifically talked about driving ambition. My understanding is at the moment driving ambition is not taking place, but I will look into that further for you. We are about to get a new preventions and interventions officer for North Highland, so I will speak to her once she's in post and see what's happening with driving ambition. In terms of harm prevention and cuckooing, you asked, have I seen an increase? No, I wouldn't say that I've seen an increase, but what I would say is our area continues to be vulnerable to cuckooing activity. It does take place, and we have to be open to that, you know, and look for the signs and report any concerns. He specifically asked about what should be done if councillors receive information about someone who's potentially a concern. I would say, as councillors within the Highland Council, you have routes to provide support through social work colleagues, but also if you have specific concerns, you can raise them with me and I will highlight them to our harm prevention officer to get that person's name in as known, and they can review what can be done. In relation to the work we do with schools, each school has a school liaison officer identified who will have contact with the schools. That level of contact depends, you know, on what each school and head teacher wishes and what we are able to deliver for them. But there is good, you specifically mentioned Dingwall Academy. We have a good ongoing relationship with Dingwall Academy and are regularly in there providing support. In terms of police officer numbers, what the information I found is that the overall numbers for North Highland, which is the command area I work in, will be increasing. That is at constable level. That is not specialist post, that's constable level. I think I've covered all your questions, Councillor, unless I've missed anything you wish to remind me of.
I don't think you said how many, or do you not want to?
That's information I'm not able to give out at the moment. I think that's maybe something that should come into your briefing with the Chief Superintendent.
Sorry, Richard, mic was off. I was saying that part of what Angela was talking about, there was some proposed meeting between, I can't remember if it was yourself, but certainly senior officer and chairs of the local
Yes.
community councils. Is that something that's still viable?
Yes. Sorry, yes, I should have mentioned that in my community council contact. So part of the project I'm looking at in terms of the reporting structure for the division, I will also be looking at my proposal for the community council chairs meeting, in which that will be more specific to my area. That may not end up being a divisional structure, but in terms of my policing area, yes, I will be getting that up and running. And realistically, I'm now aiming for September, October to get that in place and up and running.
That's great, because I know from talking to them, as we all do, that they're very keen on having that meeting.
Yep.
There's one final point, Richard, and it's maybe just me, but I'm looking at the fact that the increases and decreases, yeah, but there seems to be increases in the 5-year period, which isn't surprising given COVID. But in many cases, it's sort of semi-balanced by a decrease in the last year to date, and that maybe sounds a wee bit incongruous if you're not familiar with statistics, because you would have thought as we come out of COVID it would continue to increase. Are you seeing any pattern in there, or anything to be worried about? Or
No, I wouldn't be worried. There's nothing within the statistics that stands out as unusual to me. The way things are going, we get peaks and troughs with all crime types, and what we'll probably need to remember is the numbers that we talk about in some of these crime types are actually quite small. So a small change in numbers can have a significant change in percentage. So it's sometimes difficult to read into too much. But we continue to monitor the trends and respond to any trends. And I say we do see peaks and troughs as we go through the years.
yeah, I appreciate that. The numbers are fairly small, thankfully. Okay, Richard, thank you very much for that. Full and comprehensive report and the answers to our questions. Sorry, Angela's trying to come in here.
No, I was just wondering, Richard, are you coming to our ward business meeting on the 21st? Because that would be helpful, because I've got another few issues I'd like to raise.
I don't think I've had an invite to it, Councillor, but if you want to send me the details, I'll check if I'm available. Yes, I will be there. And if not, I'm available anytime for you to either email or give me a call to discuss issues.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. And as usual, please let your staff know they have our full support in the very important work you're doing. So thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Chair.
Moving on then, members, to Dingwall, agenda item 5, Dingwall and Seaforth Ward discretionary budget applications approved since the last meeting. We're just asked to note these. Any comments, Angela?
Sorry, the very last one, it says the Muirvord Hub school hire. I think it's a hub hire. It was the hall for the meeting about active travel around Muirvord, which the school, the care home, and a number of organisations, shop mobility and all that. I think it wasn't the hire of the school, it was the hire of the room within the Muirvord Hub.
Thank you. Margaret?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I wondered if have we got a date when the Neil Gadd Trust writing competition is taking part? Because I think we normally get invited to it, and I have not heard a word of even when it is. Don't know. Do you know, Andrew?
No, neither have I, which does surprise me now that you've raised it, because Ann Yule's usually very keen on letting us know what's happening and looking for support.
Yeah.
I know that perhaps she hasn't been terribly well recently. I'll try and find out about that.
Lovely.
There
And
was some mention of it some time ago, but it's all gone quiet.
yeah, and just to give you an update of Ross County's the defibrillator. I couldn't remember the word for a minute. They've got it now. They're just in the process of getting it mounted wherever they're going to put it. Just to let you know. Okay, I think that was everything.
Okay, can we note those then, members?
Noted.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, Dingwall Common Good Fund. Helen?
Thank you, Chair. It's obviously a short, very much your standard monitoring report. Basically, things are on target, income on target for year end. General property expenditure, obviously very little through as yet, but we'd expect it to come out on budget. And the project expenditure, obviously that's more significant, and I've got the I've got the right code, so that 55,000 will get put through in due course, and that comes out of the usable reserves as approved. Apologies for the slight numbering glitch in the report, which gave me a moment when I noticed it earlier on. But there's not a missing section, it's just a slight numbering glitch. So yeah, obviously the most significant thing ongoing at the moment is the town hall works, but I know members will be very familiar with what's happening there. Yeah, the Dingwall Community Hub now operational. It looks a very neat looking little building now, isn't it? I popped in to have a look. So I've nothing other to add to the monitoring report that's there as Appendix 1, but obviously if members have got any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Noted. Yeah.
Thanks, members.
So today we've got the winter maintenance report for Dingwall and Seaforth for the coming winter. I can discuss it at length, councillors, but it's the same routes, same gritters, and the same men as previously. So I don't know whether you'd like me to go through it in depth, or do you just want to move on to questions and answers?
That's what I was going to say. What's the difference between last year?
Yeah.
I think I agree with Angela.
Yeah, go on. Fire away.
All right, yeah, so Ian, so thanks for coming today. And you're right, you've got limited resources to do ever increasing roads, because more houses that are built, the more difficult it is for you. I just wanted to highlight the staff establishment. How are we fully up to our quota in our area for staffing? Are there a number of vacancies? What's the age profile of this, the staff? Are we succession planning? Because as you see in the report, although this is the winter maintenance, they also do other work as well. And is that having an impact on the service that can be provided by your small team in our area?
Yes, Councillor McLean. just to start with, we, unfortunately, we never seem to be at full complement. And part of that is that, for one reason or another, council is often not seen as the best employer. In terms of age profile, our roadmen, when, in fact, not just the roadmen, I mean all our staff, when they join the council, a lot of them stay because they enjoy the work. They recognise the benefits the council provides and the salary. But as in terms of the winter maintenance, most of our drivers are getting older. And, you know, that carries maybe increased levels of sickness. And that proves to be a problem, especially in terms of having enough drivers. Quite often there'll be, somebody might be off sick or there might be a vacancy and we've got to try and manage that between whatever resources we've got across the campus. So it is always a problem. And during the winter operations, I mean, even if it appears to be a kind of a mild winter, we're generally still out treating the roads in the morning, even in those sort of, if you like, grey conditions when it's maybe hovering around about the zero. We sort of tend to err on the safe side, and we'll put the routers out. But quite often that means that within a few hours the temperature comes up, and then, you know, people are wondering, well, what's the issue? I mean, why can't you do other work? But between putting them out in the morning and then doing an evening pre-treat, that leaves a smaller window, which our drivers still have to comply with either GB domestic driving regulations or the EU regulations. And that can make planning the work much harder.
Just a small one, but a very important one. Grit bins. Will they all be checked and filled and ready for, we don't know what kind of winter we're going to end up getting, because, and I presume that we've got enough snow ploughs, etc., and vehicles that we're not caught short, and because it can be a big worry, you know, people, you know, we really need to get people to check the bins that are near where they use them. Sometimes we can see them when we go round, and some of them are not in very good condition. So I just wondered if that was right. Thank you.
Asked by a number of people, and including sort of self-help community groups, if we could have a grit bin map, which outlines where they all are within our ward, that would be really useful, I think.
Well, maybe just to take your question first, Councillor Mackenzie, yes, we can provide a grit bin map. You can get that emailed out through, maybe, so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I recognise grit bins are, they play a large part in reassuring the public that the roads are drivable. Because, I mean, if it's always reassuring to know that there's a grit bin on a steep hill or a salt pile on the verge. That is what I notice them anyway. So when I'm going up a steep hill, I always think to myself, at least there's salt piles stuck out here in the winter. So I understand how important the grit bins are to the community. We always aim to get all the grit bins checked and stocked up before winter starts. Winter starts officially on October 15th. We don't have the fleet yet, and every year I would like to get my fleet just that little bit earlier, because you never really know if you're going to get a bad start to winter. So it's always better to have everything ready beforehand. And the more lead-in time you've got, the better it is, because there's always going to be a mishap. There's always going to be a gritter that does need to start in the day. But at least then you've got a couple of weeks more just to sort it and just the usual.
Thanks, Ian.
So my question is on page 17, 8.1, the number of frontline gritting vehicles and footpath tractors for the area. But what area? Is that the old Ross and Cromarty area that you're mentioning in this report? It's not just Dingwall and Seaforth area.
Well, that's basically Hill. Yeah.
I know the answer to this. I'm sure you're going to tell me it's resources, but it is really important. I've got a number of constituents who have been raising recurring problems with me over some considerable time, especially after very heavy rainfall. And I've passed these on, and nobody ever contacts these constituents, which leads to their sense of frustration. And their sense of frustration means that they take it out on me, and I'm sure others, with the constant emails. Do we have a communication strategy in these cases?
The strategy is that we're supposed to reply within 10 working days.
So easily.
Yes, I'm not going to deny that. I think the fundamental problem is that we have to put our resources maybe where there's the most time constraint element. We're very seasonal, as you know. Just now, everybody has been basically on capital work since April, all the operatives. Now that means that a lot of the work that we would normally do under revenue hasn't been done, or has been delayed or reduced. And you mentioned basically flooding. Whilst we try and maintain the gully sucker in its programme, sometimes we can't do patching and cleaning gullies at the same time. There just isn't people. Now, we can have the second gully sucker we got after the Dingwall floods, greatly appreciated, because we have more plant available. And we have a weekly meeting to try to make sure that all our critical resources, such as the Potfill Pro and the gully sucker, both of them are fully utilised. And I think last week we only managed to crew the gully sucker. I think it was 2 out of the 5 days, or 3 out of the 5 days. Those are the choices basically we have, yes. Going back to your original thing about not getting back to people. We now have a new road inspector starting today. A new roads inspector starting today. So, John Stewart. He replaced Malcolm Ross. So he's based in Dingwall. Yeah. So apart from just inspecting the roads for safety issues, my intention is to use John to look at things such as flooding incidents. They take an awful lot of time in terms of going out, speaking to people, understanding what's wrong, what's where, why has it not drained away like it should do? What's caused that? And it's not necessarily just a gully which is full. It could be all the way down the sort of like the drainage line. There could be blockages, partial blockages that cause the flow to surcharge when it's under a thunderstorm. Then work apparently normally in dry weather flow So that does take quite a bit of time. But I'm hoping that John will be able to start speaking to people and at the very least making an initial contact. No, I appreciate that.
So I'll email you. And you mentioned, I can't remember what it's called, the
Pothole Pro.
Pro.
Yeah.
Is that currently in use in our ward? Because I haven't seen.
It's in your ward. I couldn't say if it was currently in use, but I do know that we have a weekly meeting with 3 road officers. The Pothole Pro is shared across the whole of Ross and Cromarty. If one of my road officers, it's where it goes is programmed, okay? So that each, every maybe 2 or 3 weeks, it will change area, change road officer. And Laura will get it for her area. When Laura gets it, I'm not going to tell Laura to do Dingwall High Street or, you know, it goes where it has to go.
No, we wouldn't presume to do that either, but we would like to know when it's going to be here.
Yes, we can. We don't have when it's going to be in Ward 8, but we can tell when it's going to be in Laura's area. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. Angela.
So I know you were here to talk about the winter maintenance, but I think we're allowed to talk about other things as well. Yeah, that's fine. You did mention about getting back to people. I think, you know, I've sent a few emails and haven't had a response either for local residents. So I appreciate how much work you've got on, Ian, but it would be useful because it makes us look as if we have not done anything. And I appreciate you've got a lot on your plate, given your short staff and everything. If you could respond, that would be useful. Thanks.
I think I've come to in a minute, Margaret. I've got a number of people. If I could go back to them, Ian, and say, we've raised this issue, and we now do have a new road inspector, and we're hopeful of improved communication this time over. Yeah. Okay. Margaret.
Thank you. I have to thank you and the team for Ferry Road because it's absolutely amazing. And what a difference. The amount of people that were complimenting in it when we had the game Ross County on Saturday. What a difference. And not just the people that were going to the football, but the people that were going to the caravan site because it was absolutely horrendous. And we were worried that the economy of the town would suffer if people stopped going to the caravan site. So I have to give a big thank you for that. The one that I'm really concerned about is the Tulloch housing scheme with Dees Avenue, Bruce Avenue and all these. It's horrendous and the potholes are not being attended to. And when I complained about it, I was told that they're too big and deep, that, you know, the whole area has got to be done. So I don't know if we have to go back and see what our lists are that, you know, we can put something. And it's the same all over. And, you know, it's just there doesn't seem to be enough money to go around. And I feel that the money that we're given for Dingwall and Seaforth is very much on the low side. I think for the main town in Ross and Cromarty and for the amount of traffic that comes in through Dingwall because of the mart and because of other businesses, that we don't get the amount that we should be due. And I know it's worked out on the length of roads, etc. But sometimes you've got to think about, is there more traffic on that small part of road than there is in long roads? So it's just, we're all very concerned, and I know that you're doing your best, and it's anyone that's having a budget, especially like people in the homes, they know that the money doesn't go as far as it used to, and it's the same on roads. But there are a few things that are very urgent, just like small things, like the road out of Dingwall round towards Bogan Bank and that. There has been temporary, what do you call them? Bits of plastic, I think. And, you know, somebody tripped on them just a couple of weeks ago and was quite badly hurt because they turn up with the heat of the sun. That's what I maintain it's doing it. So, and I don't know, is that Scottish Water, although I've sent off emails to Scottish Water, or whether it's our responsibility, but it is on our pavements, and it's small things like that that really upset our constituents, and then we get it, you know, that, which rightly so, that's what we're here for, and we're sorry, then we get on to you. But thank you.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the compliment about Jubilee Park Road. It's always great to see a new bit of improved road, you know. Public housing schemes with the potholes. Generally, potholes can be patched, but when the road deteriorates too much, it's an overlay. So, or an inlay. And overlays and inlays are really capital schemes. So we can have a look, and if we can patch it, we will. If we can't, then it'll be discussed for next year's capital program, which I'm already putting together. In terms of the budget, as you know, councillors, we used to have one Ross Cromarty area and one Ross Cromarty budget, and we now have, I now have 4 areas, but I've still got one Ross Cromarty budget, and that can make decision making for everybody quite difficult. So I hear what you say, and I would prefer to have a budget for my areas as opposed to trying to split the budget across different areas.
On that point, maybe Laura has mentioned this to you, I've raised Gairloch Crescent with her in Conant Bridge. She had something to look at it. The road is short.
Yes.
It needs a plane and an inlay.
Yeah.
And what the residents are saying, well, they do realise money is short, but they're saying, when will we get the selection?
Yeah. We can consider that at the ward business meeting for the capital programme. But all I can say is that, I mean, yes, I've seen those roads. I really understand the issues. What we have, though, is that we have money to go into this road or into that road. And it can be a very difficult decision as to where you want to put your resources, because I can't satisfy everybody. And it's, in many ways, it's not even repairing people's roads. It's trying to give them a reassurance that we're actually considering it.
Angela.
Yeah. Since we're talking about this, I know that there are, as you say, Gairloch Crescent and others have been raised before, but would it be worthwhile if we as local members actually did spend some time looking at the worst roads? Because it's not just about the potholes in some areas, as Ian said, a number of them are failing, and they're failing quite badly for our residents, and that's throughout the ward. And you know, there has been priorities set, and Ian's brought them to our ward business meetings before about this is what the experts are saying are the worst roads, and we've yet kind of been going with most of those priorities. So maybe it's an opportunity for us to actually sit down and because after the last year, and see how bad some of our roads really are, and what should be our priorities. And as Ian said, some of it might be capital, some of it revenue, but it's only getting worse, and we're getting lots of complaints. As you said, I was in Tain, up Dornochwy, their roads are looking excellent, and out the west they're looking excellent, but they get a bigger budget than we do in Dingwall and Seaforth.
Thanks, yeah. To be fair to Laura, she did recently offer me a drive round, and I think that would be useful because, like the experts, there's not that very many of them. We don't know. We come across things with electricity and we say that needs to be addressed, but there might be worse ones that we don't know about. Until we do know about them, you can't prioritise. So I think a look round the ward would be particularly useful. And if nothing else, it would give us a sense of the difficulties you guys are facing as well.
One of the interesting things that has been developed was it's a version of, it's artificial intelligence for potholes. The company that provides us with our winter data from our ice alert stations, they've also produced this piece of software. We have a rather expensive mobile phone that is attached to the van, and we've driven our entire road network through synchrometry. That was then uploaded to this company's computer, and they taught their computer what a pothole looks like, and it essentially color codes the roads depending on how much of the road width the pothole takes up. That gives you a very visual record. That when you can zoom in, you can see, for instance, like Airlock Crescent, you can see how bad that is. And they then added on the video that was originally taken, so you can see the road and you can see where the potholes are, and it ties up quite well. And we've started using that for next year's capital programme, because the capital programme is largely based, well, it is based on what we know at that time. But for ages, even with a previous road inspector, we didn't manage to get around all the roads in Northern County. And I'm sure there was many of the back roads in Dingwall and Seaforth that weren't inspected. But this isn't a replacement for a road inspector. It does allow us to very quickly look at where those roads that have failed are, so that we can then hone in on those at an early stage, rather than prepare a programme which is usually curtailed by the amount we're spending, rather than where all these little roads are that we may not see. But I would certainly welcome any councillor's list of students. And I'm preparing my capital programme for next year.
So we're invited to approve the winter service plan for 23-24. Can we do that? Thank you. Thanks very much, Ian, for coming along this morning. Agenda item 9, circulated for noting the minutes of the meeting of the Area Committee held 22nd of May 2023.
Noted.
Thank you. Thank you for your attendance this morning, members. That brings us to the end of the Area Committee. Thank you.